All right, everyone, I'm gonna try to get these popping corn kernels off of their cobs.
You can see the writing on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always, they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it.
What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah? Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
One of my favorite snacks is popcorn, and that's why we grew about 100 stalks of these popcorn varieties. I particularly like the mushroom corn variety. They look like small spheres of popcorn once they pop. I'm not sure if you know this, but you can get different types of popcorn, and sometimes when you get a blend, you'll notice a few of them look spherical. That's specifically the mushroom corn variety, and every single one of these will be shaped like that. So some people say you can use like the back of a butter knife. I've experimented with little wedges of wood, a number of things, but what I recommend is get the thickest gloves you can get. These ones, I believe they're Harbor Freight, but you want to make sure that they're pretty form-fitting. You don't want a lot of slack because you're going to get blisters. Basically start with the end, tighten your thumb and index finger just around the edge, rotate it. You can see I took the end right off of that. So as you rotate, you're not trying to pinch the corn. In fact, that's going to be counter to what you're trying to do because that'll prevent the kernels from coming off. You want to push on the corn from the end, kind of stress it, and then every time you rotate, you're going to take another inch or so off. This is a perfect example. This one here is very easy. Sometimes you'll get one that's hard to do. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah, this one's a bit harder. As I turn, it's not really doing anything. So when that happens, you should try just with your thumb. Try to push some off towards the point. And once you get a few off, then you can try the other method again, and it'll come right off. And you can see here, I'm just using like a brownie tray that you would use to bake brownies with. And I probably don't want to get it too much fuller than this. So these other 3 trays of corn, I'll wait for another time. But you can see there's a lot of this corn powder. It's just other parts of the plant that you don't really need for baking. And we actually have a good wind going on here. I don't know if you can see it, but these little flakes start to fly through the air in the wind. And if you can imagine that on a larger scale, they actually do that for other things. I think maybe coffee and chocolate. The processors will do a similar technique where they'll kind of sift it around and let air blow through and get all that junk out of the corn. So that's probably the next thing I'll have to do with this. And we did this last year. We didn't grow this much, but if you want to go back and look at last year's video, you'll be able to see the techniques we used. Basically, since I learned some lessons from last year, I'm able to do this much quicker and without much thought. It's kind of a mindless activity, just twisting like this. But I do recommend doing it outside because all these little fibers, and then you can see all over the table, I probably have 100 of these little corn kernels across the table. So these are going to shoot all over your house if you try to do it inside. And if you just had a vacant room, maybe a garage where you can easily sweep, that would be fine. I basically just waited an extra month or so till the weather started to get a bit cooler, and so I can come outside and do this. You can see here, I accidentally just broke the tip off of that one, and that's what happens when you have a stubborn corn where they don't come off and you work it a little too hard. So what I should have done was the thumb technique, where I kind of push it perpendicular, and then they come right off. So stay tuned and you'll see the next phase in this corn processing. This is the outside condenser unit for our 5-zone mini split air conditioning system that I installed a few years ago. It just kicked on, even though it's a bit cool out. Let's see if we can get some of this fiber blown out of the corn. You can see all these little, it's almost like paper, fine paper powder. It's blowing all around. And that's really the goal of this. I'm just kind of tapping this off to get the sticky fibers out. But you can see here, it seems to work a lot better when you're pouring a smaller container into a larger container. Because I'm kind of on a sloped thing. I have this sitting on the hose. And you're trying to maximize the surface area. Because the more surface of the corn that the air hits, the more fibers can blow out of the way. I'm just doing some hand picking. Some of those long threads from the corn are still in here. Well, that's all we got before the condenser turned off, but I think that was a perfect amount. All right, well, that pretty much concludes the process. I just wanted to give you a few tips. First of all, we have these seed trays. I think they're for microgreens, but I don't know if you can see here, there's these tiny holes in them that allow for drainage. Well, we typically use them for storing these cobs inside. We have these old wine bottle racks that we got for free from neighbors that were giving them away. And they're not really good for much else besides wine or anything else about this thick, where we can slide these trays over the slats. And you can go back and see how we start our seed trays for the season in some other videos. We use these same racks. But basically, since we're not starting seeds during the summer, it's a perfect time to store these corn cobs inside. Basically, we want to make sure they're inside and away from the summer thunderstorms that we get here in the southeast. And you'll see here, we can't pile them up too high. First of all, we want good circulation for air to go around these. And plus, if they're any taller than this, they won't fit on that wine rack. So we're using these for circulation and not drainage as they're intended for. And then we had these inside for probably 2 months. We didn't have to wait that long, but I was waiting for it to be cool and windy out. We recently had a hurricane. Hurricane Ian came through here. It's been pretty cool and breezy since then. But I waited for it to dry out. I cleaned off this table. We have this nice glass patio table with a slightly raised edge. And the raised edge is perfect because when these kernels start to fall, when you break them off, they're shooting everywhere. If they get in the grass, whatever, it's not going to damage the mower. But the ones that do land on the glass table, since it's cleaned, they're not going to roll off because of that lip. And then I can sweep them up with my hands and get an extra 100 or so kernels out of this. But you can see here, this tray, when I was stripping these of the kernels, I filled this up to about 2/3. And that's pretty important because you saw me sifting these back and forth with the airstream, just kind of blowing these little fibers out of the place. Well, when you're pouring them back and forth, especially if you're on an unlevel surface on the ground like I was, you don't want this to be absolutely full, because then as you pour it back and forth, they're gonna shoot out. So you could potentially use 2 of the same tray if you had them. I just grabbed a baking sheet from the inside, and then I used this little thing that we were storing the corn cobs in. So I'm just going to clean these up real quick. This was basically 1 tray worth, and I'll probably throw those in the compost. So yeah, definitely, if you have extra seed trays around, make sure they're clean. If you use your baking ware from the inside, that's probably a good option. Just make sure not to leave the corn out in the elements. They could get moldy, they could grow funguses on them. And definitely when you store these, store them with the husks shucked off of them, because as you can see from our popcorn harvesting video, a lot of these will have corn worms inside of them, and they're not really an issue while the plant's alive. but when you take it off, they're gonna die in there. It's gonna get all weird and gross and slimy. So what I did was I picked off all the worms, gave them to our chickens, and then I made sure that any of the dead worm squishy areas, I broke it off and threw that away before we stored it, because we don't want all that junk drying with our popcorn. This is food after all. And this is probably going to fill up a couple mason jars worth. We only got, I think, 2 or 3 mason jars last year, and that's probably just what one of these trays is going to give us. We probably have 4 times the amount of popcorn as we did last year. And for storage, we can use any container we have on hand. This isn't really a product that needs to be preserved or canned or pressurized. We're using this generic large glass ingredient container. We've stored all sorts of different things in this. But just because all of our mason jars are in use right now, they have different pickles and stuff in them. But I can definitely tell you from experience that having a wide mouth is beneficial if you plan to scoop in some sort of measuring cup in there. It's kind of a pain to pour into a measuring cup from a smaller mouth, especially since these things can roll all over your house. But if you're out of mason jars or you don't have any wide mouth containers, you can use a large enough funnel to try to fill up a water bottle, Gatorade bottle, or any number of recycled bottles you might have on hand. You can see here I'm trying to put just the last few kernels into this container, which is actually appropriately a previous purchase of popcorn. Something that we purchased from Harris Teeter. They sell organic popcorn, and we do purchase it when we run out of our own homegrown kernels. But you can tell it's a pain to get this in here. If you put any more than 10 kernels at a time, they get clogged and then I have to shake it through. And there is a high likelihood that I'm going to spill these on the floor when I try to pour them into a measuring cup. While you watch me struggle to fill up this little container with these kernels, try to think about and visualize how you like to enjoy your popcorn. Let us know in the comments what ingredients you like to use, either for seasoning, what type of oil, even the heating method you use. Do you make instant popcorn in the microwave? Do you have a machine? Do you do a stovetop method like us? Let me know down in the comments. Popcorn is one of our favorite treats here on the homestead, and I'm happy to make a short video for you guys showing how I like to make it and season it, and whatever else you might want to see, just let me know. We recently hit a 100 subscriber milestone here on the Kind Heart Homestead YouTube channel, so thank you to everyone who made that possible. If you're new to the channel, you just stumbled upon our popcorn video, please consider subscribing. That way you can stay up to date with all of our garden progress, as well as any renovation and DIY work that we also have to do here on the homestead. So what do you guys think? Is this the corniest video on YouTube? Let us know down in the comments. Bye.